Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky agrees to a partial ceasefire with the Kremlin on energy infrastructure during talks on the phone with U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday, following the latter's engagement with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin a day earlier. We have more on the path to peace for Ukraine on Press Perspective today. Hello and welcome to Press Perspective for this Thursday, March 20th here in Seoul. I'm Min Sunhee. Today we touch upon U.S. efforts to end the three-year Russian aggression against Ukraine, given its broader implications on global stability and order. For this, I have Celio Fioretti for French daily Croix. Celio, it's great to have you back.
Glad to be here.
I also have Ruy Valdes with Spanish news agency EFE Spain. Ruy, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
It's a pleasure to be here too, Sonia.
Celia, we'll start with you. Let's take this in chronological order. So earlier this week, that would be Tuesday U.S. time, Mr. Trump spoke on the phone with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin. What has been shared about the details of their talks by their respective top officers?
Indeed, we're seeing some development on a possible peace or a truce, at least in Russia's war on Ukraine. The White House said a lengthy phone call between President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin had achieved a movement to peace, while Putin and Trump agreed on an immediate pause on strikes against energy and infrastructure. The Kremlin makes it clear that Russia has many additional demands that it will consider for a broader ceasefire. Hours after the call, air raid sirens sounded and explosion rocked Ukraine, still Ukrainian capital city Kyiv. The White House and the Kremlin both said they agreed to begin negotiation immediately to achieve a fuller ceasefire. We'll see how that can be achieved. During this 90-minute long call, Donald Trump really insisted on improving U.S.-Russia relations. That's really his main focus during the discussion. So the peace is something for him to achieve a better relation with Vladimir Putin in the end. He said that Russia has a huge upside, including enormous economic deals and geopolitical stability when peace will be achieved. Mr. Trump also said that negotiations are complicated and he would like to meet Putin face-to-face anytime soon to really maybe make it move a bit faster for him. Last week, delegate from U.S. and Ukraine met in Saudi Arabia and proposed a 30-day ceasefire. Well, Putin accepted the idea for a ceasefire in principle. He did not commit to any deals on this, and more discussion will be needed. On the Kremlin side of the phone call, Vladimir Putin said the peace will require conditions such as putting a stop to intelligence sharing between Western countries and Ukraine, and as well as stopping any military aid to Kyiv. Putin also mentioned that he doesn't trust the Ukrainians that much to really enforce the ceasefire, so we'll see how it goes, but peace might be on the way, but it's a long way to go.
Right. And Ruy, before we touch upon details with regard to the talk between Mr. Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, for the sake of clarity, could you walk us through the conditions set forth by Russia for a ceasefire and the conditions set forth by the U.S. in Ukraine for a ceasefire?
Yes, well, starting with the Kremlin, there was a little bit of discrepancies in the statements made by the Kremlin, White House, and Kiev. The Kremlin said that they only agreed on ceasefire on energy infrastructure. That was the condition. But the White House added infrastructure in general, so energy facilities plus infrastructure, without giving much detail of what that means. So it's still not that clear what will be the final agreement. Celio say this is just in principle that they agreed on this temporary ceasefire. But also Ukraine, as we will speak later, said that they will stop attacking energy facilities, but also he mentioned railroads and ports as part of the parts of the ceasefire agreement that they will not attack. So it's a little bit difficult to know at this moment exactly how this will end, but everybody's saying that in Saudi Arabia they will discuss the technicalities related to this matter. And yeah, so for now, that's more or less the general scope. Celio put it out very well already.
Right, so what do we know about the talks between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump that took place on Wednesday, U.S. time?
Yeah, we know that also Zelensky seemed open to the idea of the temporary ceasefire, but he also did not agree with the request of Putin of saying that all the military aid from the West should stop to Ukraine. That part is still in disagreement. But he said also an interesting thing. During the talks, Trump made a proposition. He said that maybe the U.S. could own one of a major nuclear plant of Ukraine in order to protect it from attacks from Russia. Zelensky didn't fully agree on that, but was open apparently to the proposal. So, and basically, just as Putin said, this is all in principle because later on they will finalize all the technical details. There's still some skepticism around about this ceasefire, as Celio pointed out, right after the talk of Trump and Putin, they were allegedly Putin ordered to stop to ceasefire in the energy facilities. That night, Kiev accused the Kremlin of attacking one of the energy facilities, and also Russia claimed that Ukraine did the same thing. So the skepticism about this temporary ceasefire agreement is still in the air. So we have to be very careful about the interpretations in this regard.
In the meantime, though, Celio, France and Germany continue to highlight the importance of Ukraine's role in peace talks with Russia. Tell us a bit more about that.
Exactly. What Europeans want the most is to not be sidelined. In the peace talk about a war on their own soil, Europe is at the core of the war. If we remember, the revolution that happened more than 10 years ago in Ukraine was motivated at pro-EU sentiment. So they're really pushing for Ukraine to be in the loop, to be in the discussion. But of course, Europe with her. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and French President Emmanuel Macron reaffirmed on Tuesday that any peace negotiation regarding the conflict in Ukraine must fully involve the Ukrainian government. During a meeting in Berlin, the two leaders underscored their unwavering support for Kyiv, emphasizing that no decision about Ukraine's future should be made over the heads of the Ukrainian people. The risk is that if Trump and Putin might agree on something and enforce it, it will impose peace on Ukraine without any Ukraine having any words on the peace talks. The talks came ahead of a European Council summit in Brussels later this week, where Ukraine, European defense, and economic competitiveness will be key topic of the discussion for maybe the peace talk and the whole relationship between Europe and Ukraine after. Scholz reaffirmed that Ukraine can fully rely on Europe for its future. Macron echoed this sentiment, affirming that Europe continued support for Ukraine to ensure a stable and lasting relationship. He welcomed the Trump and Putin phone call, saying it's a good way, a first step toward peace talks. According to Macron, France, Britain and Germany have played a constructive role in persuading Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to accept a ceasefire and move towards the negotiation that at the first he could be maybe a bit reluctant, but they really insisted that it's in everyone's interest to at least talk and make a peace talk move further away.
Right. French President Emmanuel Macron, Celio, also spoke about extending France's nuclear umbrella to its allies. What's the latest on that front?
Indeed, French President Emmanuel Macron is showcasing France's plans to upgrade its nuclear arsenal as he seeks to engage in talks with Germany to extend its European powers, extending his country a nuclear umbrella for European powers. On Tuesday, Macron visited an air base in the eastern town of Luçon-les-Bains, announcing plans to spend close to $1.5 billion to modernize the facility so that it can host a fleet of 40 Rafale jet fighters, and these fighter jets are able to carry nuclear weapons. Friedrich Merz, who is poised to become Germany's next chancellor, has called for talks with France and UK, the continent's only nuclear weapons, nuclear powers in Europe, to extend a deterrence over other European countries, including Germany. And this is not a new idea, actually. As Merce recalled, French President Charles de Gaulle, back in the 60s, already offered to protect Europe with French nuclear weapons. But at the time, US was more important, so Europe sided with US. But now, Frédéric Merce said that maybe it's time for Germany to accept this offer made by France and to have a discussion without taboo about French nuclear weapon being used for European defense. Macron has for years pushed this idea and pushed the idea to European leaders to develop an autonomy, a strategic autonomy for Europe to defend itself without relying too much on the US. At first, this idea, even back in 2017 or 18, many European nations were a bit scared or reluctant to really fully engage with France on this path because they were scared that maybe autonomous European defense will jeopardize NATO treaty. But now with Trump being more and more unreliable or maybe obscure about his true intention for Europe, many countries are now pushing to join France and maybe have autonomy, more autonomy in the defense. France's nuclear arsenal is also much smaller than what the US has, with maybe 200 nuclear weapons. But still, France said it's enough for European defense on just to protect the continent.
Right. All this being said, Ruy, the big question now is, can France's nuclear umbrella protect Europe? What appears to be the general consensus on that front?
Well, there's a lot of debate about that. First of all, they say that considering the amount of nuclear warheads that France has in comparison to Russia and US together, which I think they have around, they calculate between 5,000 and 10,000 between those two big nations, they think that France has the capability as a decent nuclear power, but not to apply deterrence. And what Macron is trying to do, it seems, is that by expanding its arsenal in these planes, Rafale planes, is to start planning for a possible distribution of the nuclear warheads across Europe to defend different parts of it. The problem is that the nuclear doctrine of France doesn't really, at this moment, allows the nation to do that. They only are able to use, I mean, in paper, their nuclear arsenal in the most urgent situation, unlike US that can use it as deterrence to protect other countries. So in order for France to be able to apply this, not only possibly will need to increase its nuclear capabilities, but also will have to change its whole coordination, its whole doctrine regarding this issue. And there is another thing. The UK, people are saying, well, also the UK is the other country in Europe that has nuclear warheads. How could they participate in this? And they have two problems. First of all, they are no longer part of the European Union, which creates a little bit of problems there. But the biggest issue is that they still depend on the US for assessment and maintenance of their nuclear arsenal. This means that if they want to use their nuclear arsenal, they most likely will need the assistance of US. And as Elliot points out, right now, nobody really knows with clarity what's the final objective of the Trump administration in this regard. So we could say that the UK being more dependent on the US, it doesn't present itself as a strong nuclear power as compared to France that, yeah, if somebody's going to take the lead, it's France. The thing is that at this moment, we don't know how this is going to end. But at some point, and I was discussing this with Celio before, if the European Union is pushed to use France as the leader or as the nuclear umbrella, of the applier of this nuclear umbrella, then maybe we're going to start thinking that this is a big reason for the European Union to exist right? Many people question its existence, and now we know that if U.S. abandoned them, probably through unity and through a new leadership that is inside Europe, the whole idea of the European Union, for many people, start to make sense again.
Right.
Yeah.
Ruy, this is an impromptu question.
Yeah.
You can give me a brief answer. Do you suppose, amid such talk about the need to protect, to raise defense infrastructure among countries, do you suppose Mr. Trump's presence at the White House will start another nuclear arms race?
Well, that's a big question. I did read that from experts, for example, if France wanted to increase its nuclear arsenal just by 100 more nuclear warheads, it could take them decades. So it's not as simple and it's not necessarily as fast. On the other hand, yeah, there's more pressure for countries to start doing this. Ukraine, one of the reasons many people believe Ukraine was attacked was because Ukraine lacked of nuclear weapons. So if this is actually a reason that other countries interpret to increase their own defense, yeah, well, sadly, maybe we are looking at a world where more and more countries will increase their nuclear capabilities.
Right, which is a really scary thought.
Very scary.
Celio, moving on, also this week there was a war of words, if you will, between a French politician and the White House press secretary. For the sake of those who may not be familiar with this confrontation, could you walk us through it? And what are your takeaways, speaking as a French journalist here?
The French politicians are making themselves heard in the U.S. In the last 2 weeks, we had a few word fights with the White House. It started actually with Claude Malhuret, a long-time conservative French senator, during a speech on international policy in the French Senate. He described Trump as an incendiary emperor with a Nero's-like court, Nero being the Roman emperor that, according to the legend, made his own city, Rome, burn. He attacked Elon Musk too, saying he's a ketamine-fueled buffoon. Overall, his speech criticized Trump, describing as an American danger for Americans and for the rest of the world. The video of his speech was translated and gained a lot of attention in the US, and Claude Malhuret also got quite a lot of popularity there. What Claude Malhuret said about this is quite interesting, actually. He regretted that this sort of brave speech against Trump has to be made by a French politician, and that we don't hear so much of the American politician actually opposing Trump. More recently, also another politician, this time the socialist Raphael Glucksmann, asked the US to give back the Statue of Liberty. He said, "We gave it to you as a gift because you value freedom and liberty, but apparently you despise it, so it will be just fine back home." The Statue of Liberty, which now sits in New York Harbor, was a gift from France to the US in 1886 to celebrate the anniversary of the American independence, which France financed in a major part, actually. The White House answered with what is now their very rude approach. I quote the White House personnel: "My advice to that unnamed low-level French politician would be to remind them that it's only because of the United States of America that France doesn't speak German." A shameful answer, as described Raphael Glucksmann, the French politician. My takeaway from all of this is that while the two comments by Malhuret and Glucksmann are communication stunts, although certainly sincere fear about Trump, it is interesting to see that this is the only opposition we have against Trump in the West. I agree with Claude Malhuret when he said we don't hear so much from the US politicians to actually raise their voice and show that Trump is not fully in charge of the country. There's some people that doesn't condone what he's doing, what he's saying. But the Democratic Party is in shambles in the US, and it has to be the European to have to raise their voice and really try to protect the West and its value of democracy and liberty. Maybe it shows more than what France is thinking. It shows more in what situation the United States policy is actually right now.
Right, and speaking about the US policy, especially with its foreign partners, Ruy, what can you tell us about the trade talks between Mexico and the US?
Well, yes, this matter has been, Mexico has been the center of attention for many countries because many foreign companies have industry there or investment there because of nearshoring and other elements related to the free trade agreement that they have in North America. Yeah, so right now the current situation is that Trump administration postponed the application of 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum until April. The hope of Mexico is that through negotiations they will get another postponement, or probably they will reach some other agreement. The situation is getting interesting in Mexico because Trump has spoken very well about our president, and you know, with Trump, those signals do matter a lot. What I'm trying to say here is that many people think that when Trump says, oh, he actually said last time, like a Mexican president is very tough woman, or she's very smart. He's giving signals of maybe some agreements that are being done behind the scenes, and also in the facts is that Mexico has actually cooperated a lot with what Trump has been demanding in order to give in a little bit more in these negotiations. For instance, well, let me start with something. A very important thing to take into consideration is why Trump imposes tariffs to everyone, right? 25% is like a number that is applied generally. Well, because he found out since long ago, through his president power, he can actually apply that, justifying matters of national security and others, and jump the parliament. So he has a lot of negotiation power through the application of tariffs. And what I'm trying to say here is that each country, Trump wants from each country different things. It's not necessarily a commercial issue per se. What's happening, for example, in Mexico is that Trump is using the tariffs as a bargain coin to get some deals related to security. And Trump did promise to his voters things like more strong borders, more seizing or major seizings of fentanyl and other different illegal drugs, within other things related to, and the arrest of major cartel leaders, drug cartel leaders. And that has actually happened very fast in Mexico. You can see the extradition of many cartel leaders recently, also the seizing of major fentanyl cargos. And I think that is making Trump very happy because he's showing his voters that Mexico is actually cooperating. So there is some optimism that they will reach maybe to some agreement because of the way Trump is speaking about the president and other factors. But still, as this conversation has been about, with Trump, you never know. So let's see what happens.
The cloud of uncertainty is still there.
Yes.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have. But Ruy, thank you very much for your insights today.
Yeah, thank you.
And Celio, as always, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts. Right, well, that does end this edition of Press Perspective. We return same time tomorrow with a light discussion on International Happiness Day, which actually is today, March 20th. See you tomorrow.